My name is Samira. I'm 42. And I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. It started with a blouse. Not just any blouse, a silky, plum-colored one I hadn't worn in years. Backless. Daring. The kind of thing I used to wear when I felt wanted. Desired. Alive. That night, I didn't put it on for my husband, Imran. Not really. I wore it for me, or rather, for the version of me I used to be. Confident. Intuitive. A woman who didn't second-guess the way someone looked at her. I wasn't looking to start something dangerous. But that's exactly what happened. Imran and I have been married for 15 years. We weren't exactly a love-at-first-sight story, more like two puzzle pieces that happened to fit. He was gentle, grounded, dependable. I'd had my share of reckless, all-consuming romances in my 20s, and I thought I was done chasing fire. I wanted calm. Safety. And for a long time I had it. We built a rhythm, soft mornings with tea, brushing our teeth side by side, late-night grocery runs where he always remembered I liked my yogurt without fruit. Little things. Sweet things. He held my hand during my biopsy results. I whispered prayers into his collarbone when his mother passed. But somewhere along the way, intimacy turned mechanical. The way he'd kiss me felt muted. Like he was clocking in. His lips still touched mine, but something inside him didn't follow. Our cuddles became habitual, his arm draped over my waist like a seatbelt instead of an embrace. We still had sex, but even that felt choreographed, like we were both just reciting steps we memorized long ago. I don't blame him. Not entirely. Life gets heavy, we've both carried our share of grief and fatigue. I became a stepmother overnight when I married him. Danish was 7 then, all sharp elbows, quiet eyes, and emotional distance. He's 22 now. Tall, quiet, composed. He rarely speaks unless spoken to, but when he does, he chooses his words like someone trained to listen first. Lately, I find myself talking more when he's in the room. About nothing. About everything. I laugh louder. I dress better. I hate how aware of him I've become. The moment that undid me, the one I keep replaying, happened last Thursday. Imran and I had been invited to a work dinner. I stood in front of the mirror, that old backless blouse clinging to me like a memory. I wasn't sure if it still suited me. My body isn't what it was at 28, but I wanted to feel like a woman again. Not just a mother. Not just a wife. Something electric. Imran walked in, barely glanced at me. "You ready?" he asked, checking his phone. I nodded. "Do I look okay?" He looked up, blinked. "Yeah, you look nice." Then he went back to scrolling. I told myself not to read into it. He was tired. Distracted. It didn't mean anything. We were about to leave when Danish came down the stairs. He froze at the bottom, mid-step, his hand still on the railing. Our eyes met. And in that suspended second, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. Heat. Confusion. Guilt. And something dangerously close to longing. It disappeared just as quickly, replaced with a forced cough and eyes that darted away. I felt the blood rush to my face. I turned away too fast, muttering something about the keys. Imran didn't notice a thing. Of course he didn't. But I did. And I haven't been able to stop feeling it since. It wasn't just the look. It was what it made me feel. Seen. Desired. Startled by the realization that I hadn't felt that in years, not since before Imran started falling asleep halfway through our conversations. Not since I stopped reaching for him in bed because I already knew he wouldn't turn to me. That night, as we sat at dinner with his colleagues, I smiled and nodded through small talk, my spine stiff from how aware I was of the cool fabric grazing my bare back. But inside me, something cracked open. I wasn't sure if it was shame or awakening. Maybe both. But that was the moment I realized something had changed. And it wasn't just me. Imran is a surgeon, the kind who wears exhaustion like a second skin. He works long shifts at the hospital, often coming home with his scrubs wrinkled and eyes red from 12 hours of standing over someone else's tragedy. I used to admire him for it. Still do, in ways. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being part of his emotional ecosystem. He comes home, kisses my cheek, and disappears into a shower of steam and silence. Last night, he reached for me in bed. I knew what he wanted before he even said a word. His hands were warm, always warm, and his mouth was soft, familiar. But I felt the same hollowness I'd been feeling for months now. That quiet panic of being touched physically but never reached emotionally. I let him kiss me. I even kissed him back. But it felt like we were acting out a scene we'd both memorized. Like choreography without music. When I turned away and pretended to be asleep, he pulled me gently into him anyway. His arm wrapped around me, hand brushing the curve of my hip. And I felt myself freeze. This kind of closeness used to comfort me. Now it felt suffocating. Not because I didn't want him. But because I wanted to feel known before I felt wanted. I needed him to ask me why I'd been quiet lately, why I kept getting lost in thought during dinner, why I hadn't worn perfume in weeks, not just pull me into his warmth like I was a habit he couldn't break. But I didn't say any of that. I just lay there, stiff and silent, trying to breathe without waking him. In the morning, I made breakfast, eggs the way he liked them, soft in the middle, and he pecked me on the cheek like always. "You okay?" he asked, pouring his coffee. "I'm fine," I said. The lie rolled off my tongue with an ease that scared me. Danish came into the kitchen a moment later. Shirtless. Sleep ruffled. He mumbled a quiet morning, avoiding my eyes, but I could feel the weight of his glance, like a thread that pulled taut between us and then snapped away. I looked down too quickly, pretending to focus on buttering toast. I hate how aware I've become of him. Of his voice in the hallway. Of his bare feet padding across the floor. I feel like my body has become a traitor, picking up signals I don't want. And yet I can't ignore them. Later that afternoon, Imran texted me from work. "Thinking about you. Last night was nice. Can we have a date night soon?" I stared at the message for a long time. I wanted to write back something honest. It wasn't nice. I felt like I was disappearing while you touched me. But instead, I typed, "Sure. Let me know what night works." We went out that weekend. He took me to an Italian place near the waterfront. The food was good. The wine was smooth. He even complimented my earrings, little silver hoops I wore only on special days. But the conversation kept hitting shallow notes. Work. Groceries. Whether we needed to replace the dishwasher. I tried. I really did. I laughed at his jokes. I asked him about his surgeries. I smiled when the waitress called us a cute couple. But when he reached across the table and ran his thumb along my knuckles, I flinched. It was small, barely noticeable, but he felt it. I saw it in the way he blinked, the way he slowly pulled his hand back. "You've been distant," he said softly. Did I do something? I opened my mouth. Closed it. I didn't know how to explain that the problem wasn't something he did, but everything he didn't. I wanted him to see me. To ask questions that mattered. To notice when I changed, even slightly. But all I said was, "No. I'm just tired." His face fell. But he nodded. Of course he did. That night, when we got home, he reached for me again. I let him touch me. And the entire time, I stared at the ceiling, wondering what it meant that someone across the hallway, someone I should never think about that way, made me feel more seen in a passing glance than my husband did in a whole evening. And still, I said nothing. It happened again last night. I was in the kitchen rinsing plates when Imran came up behind me. I heard him before I felt him, the soft shuffle of socked feet, the faint scent of aftershave that used to make my stomach flutter. His hand slid around my waist, slow and certain. He pressed a kiss to the curve of my neck, right below my ear. "You smell good," he murmured, voice low. I froze. Not because I didn't love the feeling of being held. I did. Or at least, I used to. But now, it always felt like the beginning of something else, something I wasn't ready for. My body tensed before I could stop it, shoulders rising like a shield. He didn't seem to notice. One of his hands drifted down to my hip, fingers brushing the fabric of my dress. I placed the plate in the drying rack and pulled away gently, pretending I needed a towel. He hesitated. "You okay?" I gave him a small smile. "Yeah. Just, water down my arm." He looked at me for a beat too long. I turned away before he could ask anything more. We used to dance in this kitchen. I remembered that suddenly. Late nights, music from the Bluetooth speaker, wine glasses half full, his hands on my waist as we swayed to old Bollywood tracks. It used to make me laugh. Now I just felt like I was going through someone else's memories. Later, in bed, he reached for me again. It wasn't urgent or rough. It wasn't even overtly sexual at first. He just turned to me in the dark and kissed my shoulder, fingers brushing my arm. I didn't move. "Babe," he whispered. "Come here." I rolled toward him out of instinct, letting our bodies touch. His lips found mine. Soft. Familiar. But it was like kissing someone through a window pane. I could feel it happening, but I wasn't in it. He deepened the kiss, his hand running along my spine. And that's when it hit me, this quiet panic. My breath caught in my throat, and I pulled back. "I'm not in the mood," I said, a little too fast. He blinked in the dark. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," I whispered. "I'm just tired." Silence stretched between us. He rolled onto his back, one arm flung over his forehead. I turned away, facing the wall. I could feel his disappointment. The tension in his chest. The way his body suddenly felt further away than the edge of the bed. I wasn't lying. I was tired. But not the kind of tired he thought. I was tired of pretending that every loving touch didn't feel like a transaction. Tired of him bypassing conversation, intimacy, or even a moment of stillness, jumping straight to sex, like it was the only language he remembered how to speak. I used to want him all the time. Now I barely wanted myself. He still tried, in his way. He'd make me tea, text me from work, kiss my forehead when he thought I was asleep. But none of it landed anymore. Not when the only time he truly looked at me was when he wanted something. That ache, the one you get when you want to want someone but can't, is worse than rejection. It's grief. Slow, invisible grief. And as I lay there, listening to his breathing even out, tears prickling the corners of my eyes, I found myself asking the same question I'd asked so many nights before: why does everything have to turn into sex? It started with dinner. Isn't that always the case? Something as simple as setting the table, lighting a candle, putting on music, a soft gesture toward connection. I was trying. Really trying. Imran had just come home from another long shift. He looked exhausted, but he smiled when he saw the effort I'd made. I wore a pale blue wrap dress, hair down, even a little eyeliner. The table was set for two: chicken curry, warm naan, rice with cumin and peas, all his favorites. He sat down, rubbed his eyes, and reached for the rice. Wow, this looks amazing. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to, I said. And I meant it. For a moment, I did. We ate in silence for a while. The clink of cutlery. The low hum of a Kishore Kumar song playing through the speaker. I watched him, the way his jaw tensed when he chewed, how he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand like he always did. So familiar. So predictable. And then he said it. You remember that blouse you wore last week? The backless one? You looked different in that. Like the old you. He smiled, as if it was a compliment. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The old me? Yeah, you know. You used to dress like that more often. Sexy. Confident. I miss that. I stared at him. He didn't notice the way my face changed. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care enough to stop. I didn't realize I stopped being myself, I said quietly. He looked up. I didn't mean it like that, Sam. I just meant, it was nice to see you make an effort again. Make an effort. As if I hadn't been trying to hold myself together for months while screaming silently inside. As if my grief, my fatigue, my numbness, were laziness. Something snapped in me. I wear what I feel like wearing, I said sharply. Not for you. Not to please you. Not to bring back some younger version of myself who used to bend over backwards to keep your attention. Imran blinked, confused. Samira, what's going on? Why are you twisting this? You think I want to feel invisible? That I stopped trying because I don't care? I have been drowning in this marriage, and you're talking about a damn blouse like it's a magic fix. He put his fork down. That's not fair. Isn't it? You touch me only when you want something. You don't see me, not really. You don't ask how I'm doing, you just reach for me in the dark and expect me to respond like I'm some device you plug in for warmth. His face darkened. Where is this coming from? This isn't you. I stood up. My voice was shaking. Maybe you don't know me anymore. Silence. Thick. Awkward. Imran looked away, jaw clenched. I'm not the enemy, Samira. You shut down, then blame me for not breaking through. I walked out. Straight into the hallway, and there was Danish, standing near the base of the stairs. Frozen. Eyes wide. God. How long had he been there? Our eyes locked for a second too long. He said nothing, just turned and disappeared upstairs like a shadow slipping through cracks. Shame hit me like a gust of wind. I leaned against the wall, tears welling up, chest tight. What the hell was I doing? This wasn't how I wanted to feel, broken, loud, ugly in my grief. I thought I was keeping it together better than this. That I was at least preserving some kind of dignity. But the truth was, I had been coming undone for a long time. That dinner, that stupid blouse, it was just the thread that finally snapped. I sank to the floor, head in my hands. Imran didn't come after me. Maybe he didn't know how. Or maybe he was just tired, the kind of tired that gives up before trying. Either way, I sat there in the hallway alone, heart pounding, breath shaky, thinking of Danish's eyes. The way he looked at me that day. The way I felt. And I hated myself for it. All of it. The days that followed were quiet in a way that felt unnatural. Not peaceful, just suspended. Like the house had swallowed its breath and didn't know when to exhale. Imran didn't bring up the fight. Not the dinner, not the blouse, not my outburst. He just retreated behind a wall I didn't know how to scale. He still came home from the hospital every evening, still dropped his keys in the ceramic dish by the door, still asked if I'd eaten. But his voice lost its softness. His eyes skimmed over me like I was furniture. Familiar. Functional. Background. We spoke in logistics. There's a leak under the sink. I'll get it fixed. Danish needs the car Thursday night. Okay. He didn't touch me. Not even in passing. No kiss on the cheek. No palm on the small of my back while I stirred a pot. Not even the habitual tug of the blanket in bed. I missed him. And I hated that I missed him. He wasn't cruel. He didn't raise his voice or slam doors. But he was gone in a way that hurt more than yelling ever could. He was still in the room, still folding laundry, still watching cricket on the couch, but the warmth, the reach, the wanting, it was gone. I started noticing little things. The way he stared at the floor a beat too long when I walked in. How he lingered at the hospital longer than he used to. How he checked his phone, then locked it again without replying to anyone. There was a sadness to him. A tiredness that went beyond work. He was hurting too. And I saw it. I'd assumed I was the only one starving. But maybe he was, too. Maybe he'd been trying, in the only way he knew how, and I had rejected him again and again until he'd stopped offering. One evening, I found him in the backyard, sitting on the old swing we kept meaning to fix. He didn't notice me at first. His head was tilted back, eyes closed. For a moment, I saw the boyish curve of his jaw. The one I used to kiss just to make him laugh. I stood there for a full minute, thinking about walking over. Sitting beside him. Saying, I miss you. But I didn't. I turned back inside. Later that night, Danish passed me in the hallway. He met my eyes. He held them. Everything okay? He asked quietly. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Not really, I said finally. He nodded like he already knew. He always seemed to know more than he let on. But he said nothing else, just walked away. I went into my room and sat at the edge of the bed, listening to the muffled sounds of Imran brushing his teeth. The bathroom light cast a sliver of glow across the floor. I used to love that light. It meant he was coming to bed soon. That we'd talk. That we'd laugh. That we'd curl into each other the way we always did. Now it just meant another night of silence between two people pretending not to miss each other. I picked up my phone. Scrolled through old photos. Us and Hunza, 4 years ago. Him in sunglasses, smiling with that dimple I loved. Me in a mustard scarf, my eyes full of something that felt like possibility. I felt the ache rise in my throat. Do I want to try again? I sat there with the question, heavy in my chest. Trying meant risking rejection. It meant being vulnerable. Honest. Naked in a way that had nothing to do with my body. But walking away? That meant giving up on the life we built. On the man I once chose every single day, and who, maybe, was waiting to be chosen again. I lay down, eyes open in the dark. And I still didn't know. It was a Tuesday evening when it finally broke. Not in a dramatic, glass-shattering way, more like something subtle giving way under pressure. A quiet sigh from a tired structure that couldn't hold its shape anymore. I found Imran asleep on the couch, TV still playing some muted crime show. He looked older than I remembered. Not just from work, from us. From the weight we'd both been carrying in silence. I stood there watching him for a long time, arms crossed, my breath shallow. The blanket I kept folded on the armrest had fallen to the floor. I bent down, picked it up, and placed it gently over his chest. He stirred, but didn't wake. I sat on the edge of the couch beside him. Imran, I whispered. He opened his eyes, blinking slowly. When they focused on me, there wasn't irritation, just surprise. And something close to hope. I can't keep pretending, I said softly. I'm not okay. He sat up slightly, rubbing his face. I know. We sat in silence, the hum of the TV filling in the spaces we couldn't. I miss how easy it used to feel, I admitted. Even when life was hard, we weren't. Now it's like everything I do around you feels like performance. He nodded, his voice low. I feel like I've been reaching for someone who isn't there anymore. I am there, I said. But I need more than your hands. I need your eyes. Your words. I need to feel like more than just a body in your bed. He looked at me for a long time. Then leaned forward and placed his hand over mine, tentative, like he was afraid I'd pull away. I don't know how to fix this, he said. Me either, I replied. But I know we can't keep pretending it'll fix itself. He nodded again. Then he did something I didn't expect. He leaned forward, pressed his lips to my forehead, and just held them there. No pull. No expectation. Just presence. Tears pricked my eyes. I closed them. We didn't say we'd try again. We didn't lay out a plan. We didn't make promises we weren't sure we could keep. But in that moment, that kiss on my forehead, something softened. Not healed, not reversed. Just softened. Later that night, he came to bed. He didn't touch me, didn't try to. But he lay close enough for our shoulders to touch, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't pull away. I wasn't sure where we were going. If we'd rebuild. Or if this was just a pause before the inevitable rupture. But in that fragile space between us, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not desire. Not pain. Just presence. And for now, maybe that was enough. You know, when I wore that backless blouse, I wasn't trying to seduce anyone. I wasn't looking for attention. Not consciously, anyway. I think I just wanted to feel like I existed again. Not as a wife. Not as a stepmother. Not as a woman who knew how to fold laundry in silence and make dinner while swallowing her sadness. I just wanted to feel seen. I didn't expect Danish to look at me like that. And I certainly didn't expect what it would stir in me, that sudden bloom of heat, of shock, of something dangerously close to validation. And yes, shame too. I've been carrying that moment around like a bruise. Not because I did anything, but because it exposed something in me I hadn't been willing to face, how starved I was for emotional intimacy. For being noticed. Noticed deeply. Not just for how I looked, or what I did, or how well I kept everything together. But for who I am. I've spent so many years believing love meant stability. Routine. Predictability. And it does, to a point. But desire doesn't live in the safe corners. It doesn't thrive on grocery lists and polite kisses and well-oiled habits. Desire needs curiosity. It needs presence. It needs someone to say, I see you, not just the version of you that serves me, but the messy, complicated, aching you underneath. And maybe I stopped showing that part of myself. Maybe I got too good at hiding. But I know, I also stopped asking for what I needed. Because asking felt selfish. Or dramatic. Or inconvenient. Because I didn't want to be the woman who cried during dinner or flinched during a kiss. But here's the truth, being emotionally starved feels like being slowly erased. You go through the motions. You smile when you're supposed to. You say I love you back because it's the script, but inside, you're folding into yourself, hoping someone notices the silence between your words. Imran wasn't cruel. He wasn't absent in the way people think of absence. He showed up, to work, to the table, to the bed. But he stopped reaching. And I stopped fighting to be reached. We both played a part in the quiet decay of what we had. And Danish? God, even now, I hesitate to say it out loud. There was a moment, one moment, where I saw myself through his eyes, and I hated how good it felt. Because it shouldn't have. But it did. It reminded me that I am still a woman with needs, with longing, with a pulse that still beats faster when someone sees her. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't act on it. I never crossed that line. But emotionally? I walked right up to the edge. And standing there, I had to face the version of myself I had become, someone who'd gone so long without feeling wanted that even forbidden attention started to feel like a lifeline. That's what emotional neglect does. It doesn't show up in bruises. It shows up in silence. In the way your laughter dies down. In the way you stop dressing up. In the way a backless blouse becomes a desperate prayer. Imran and we're still figuring it out. We talk more now. Not always well. But more. Some nights, we just sit on the couch with tea and say nothing. And somehow, that silence feels better than the one we had before. At least now, it's honest. He touches me less like a habit, more like a question. And I'm starting to answer. Slowly. I don't know if we'll make it. But I know this, I am no longer disappearing quietly. I have a voice. I have needs. I have the right to ask for more than survival and love. And if that makes me difficult, or selfish, or demanding, so be it. Because I've learned that it's not wrong to want to be seen. It's not wrong to need more. It's not wrong to say, I miss the fire. The tragedy isn't in wanting. The tragedy is in pretending you don't.